So I guess the easiest way for me is just kind of to walk through a chronological order of the types of shoes that I've worn throughout my shuffle journey leading up to where I am today, what I wear, and why I wear it. So, in the beginning, I obviously have not invested a whole bunch of money up front on a designated pair of shuffle shoes. So naturally, I wore whatever I had, which happened to be sneakers or trainers or whatever shoe I was working out in at the time. Now, sneakers, at least my sneakers, were typically super flexible up front, obviously no ankle support, and they were also highly cushioned. Now, these were not my favorite. I'm not a really big fan of overly flexible front end shoes when I shuffle because it really hinders the amount of weight that I can put on my toe. Obviously, if it's flexible and you don't have the strength to stand on your toes, you're gonna bend and it won't look as good. So for that reason, I wasn't a fan. I also just did not like how almost loose workout shoes felt on me when I was shuffling. I felt like my feet on the inside had space and I did not like that. And that mostly occurred up front here. I then figured, all right, let's get something with more support, a little bit more rigid, and a flatter sole. So this was my first investment. Yes, I bought Nike Air Forces purely for shuffling. Yes, they were meant to be torn up on the ground and beaten to death. They were not, however, because these ended up being way too rigid for me. I had no flexibility at all, obviously. Trying to bend this bad boy is not the easiest, which was awesome for toe stalls. So, and honestly, shaping was fun in these because I could stand on my toe and I could balance on my heel. And it looked really clean because I, wasn't shaking or tipping over like I would if I had a flexible shoe. Now, the ankle support in this one really rubbed me wrong. Literally. I do not like to have my ankles enclosed when I dance because I feel like it limits my ability to do certain movements because of how much support there is. For those of you who do have ankle problems or need the support, don't skin. Really take care of yourself. Go for the ankle support. If you're not getting it in your shoes, I don't know if they have some sort of like compression sock that can help protect your ankle, but take care of yourself. That is the #1 rule. But for me, these just didn't cut it and I didn't necessarily need that extra ankle support. So I moved on. I tried something else. I did also, and I don't have one right here, but I did dance in Converse for a while. And for me, the sole, it was really flat. It had enough flexibility for me to move the way I wanted to, but there was just no cushion on the inside. And honestly, it hurt my toes, both on my pinky and along the edges of my toes when I was doing toe stalls. There was no cushion there to blow that pressure. So the next shoe that I tried was, like everyone else did, I bought myself a pair of Adidas Superstars. These were my favorite shoes to shuffle in to that day. The reason being, there was no ankle support, so I had the flexibility and the freedom in my ankles to move how I wanted to. They were flat, which was awesome. They had the support I was looking for in the toe because of this hard shell, meaning I could do toe stalls, I could make my moonwalks super clean, and I could hold them without having that awful bend in my foot. So these were awesome, and obviously as you wear them in, you do get a little bit more flexibility in the toe, but in the beginning they were awfully rigid. They were so stiff. And to some people, that's great. I do like my shoes a little bit more worn in though, because I do like the little bit of give that naturally comes with wearing your shoe. Another thing that sets Superstars apart from, for example, a Converse was the fact that the bottom part, the width across the cushion part of your foot is a lot wider, and having that extra surface area helped with not only balance, But, well, honestly, it was mostly that one. They were just different. Some things I don't know how to explain, but as you progress through different shoes, when you shuffle, you will realize strengths and weaknesses and what floats your boat. The next shoe that I tried did have a heel. So I had seen a few people and was recommended by a couple to try out New Balances for shuffling. Not a favorite, not a fan, not the best for shuffling, at least in my case. These New Balances in particular were more rigid, so that, at least in the back, they're extremely rigid. In the front, there is some give, but as you can tell, and I'm pushing pretty hard, not too much, which I really appreciated. However, there was just way too much space up front in this bit of the shoe to where my feet would kind of like move around in the empty space as I was shuffling, and I didn't feel like my shoes were secured onto my feet, if that makes sense. And I didn't like that extra wiggle room. I really like to have a shoe that hugs the entirety of my foot. But then again, New Balances are notorious for being a little bit wider to accommodate for a wider foot. So keeping that in mind for people who do need the extra space. I then moved on to Bandz. Bandz. Everybody, well, at least everyone I know has tried to shuffle in Bandz, and I am not gonna lie, it's probably one of my favorite brand of shoes to shuffle in, but these were not it. You can probably guess because I already talked about it. The ankle support really killed me in this one. Not that this one was as rigid in the ankle as, for example, the Air Force, but rather that I could feel the walls of the shoe rubbing on my ankles, and I didn't like that at all. Just felt a little bit claustrophobic in there, honestly. But that being said, everything else was fine. I obviously love the flat sole. That goes a lot better with my style of dancing than having a heel does. And not only that, but there was just enough cushion in the sole to kind of cushion the blow of hitting the ground, but not enough to take away from the strength and power in my shuffle. Which led me to trying the notorious classic, well, new classic, short top Bandz. These are my absolute favorite shoes. I love these to death. You can tell they are dirty, just like all my shoes. These shoes are my saviors. I love everything about these for shuffling. I dig the flat sole, as I have mentioned many times, that really works for me. So, because I liked the original classic Bandz, I figured, you know what? I'm gonna try the platforms. I see a lot of other people trying them out. Actually, Tyler B-Girl Dern was one of the first people who I saw rocking them and killing it. So I got myself a pair. And first of all, there's not much difference, honestly, between this shoe and the regular classic. You can tell there's not really a big height difference in the platform versus the regular height. And obviously everything else is the same. So the only differentiator being that little extra height really only makes a difference if you are practicing toe stalls, moonwalks, glides, anywhere where you're putting the weight on the front bit of your foot or on your toes and you are trying to balance that. A platform is going to help you greatly. But other than that, there's not really much of a difference, except for that they look cool. Now, I did do a little experiment on my own, and I went out and got myself a new pair of shuffle shoes. These were 20 bucks, so, you know, I figured why not? So these Pumas specifically have the soft foam bedding, meaning that the sole has a lot of cushion, which is great if you're looking for that comfort inside of your shoe. However, for myself, I feel that when I shuffle, I want to feel the ground pushing off of my feet and not so much the cushion inside the shoe. So for that reason, I'm not the biggest fan, but in addition to that, the front bit of this shoe is a little bit wider, and I felt just like the New Balances, I had a little bit too much wiggle room. I guess the last thing with this shoe that I do want to talk about, which I didn't really touch on with the other shoes, but I can sum it up now, is the fact that these are extremely light shoes. And for myself, I like to have a little bit more weight in my sole to help keep me a little more grounded. If I feel that my shoe is too light, I feel like I'm flying when I start to travel, and then I start to lose balance because when I travel, I am traveling backwards. And when my shoe is a little bit too light, I don't feel like I have the traction on the ground that I'm looking for, and I end up losing my footing, which, is never good. So for that reason, I like to have a little bit more added weight in my sole, and I do find that I get that in Bandz. Which leads very nicely to my conclusion. What is it that I wear right now, and what is it that I recommend, and why? You might have already been able to pick up, and I think I mentioned, I love my Vans. I wear my Vans non-stop, and when I refer to my Vans, that could be the platform or the regular classic edition. For the majority of the time, I will be dancing in the non-platform style classic Van, just because this is my most worn in shoe, and with that wear and tear, I feel like it just hugs my foot right. I understand these shoes speak my dance language. I adore them. I recommend Vans to anyone, whether you're a beginner or you're well along your shuffle journey. Look into getting yourself a pair. And whether, you go for the flat, the ones with ankle support, or the platforms, or hell, even the platforms with the ankle support, because yes, they have those too. It doesn't, it won't make the biggest difference at the end of the day, but the little things do matter, and I figured that sharing a little bit of insight on my experiences might benefit at least one person.